It's Wednesday, May 25th, 2022, 4 p.m. This budget workshop of the Board of Commissioners is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Hendricks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini.
Here.
First is public comment. Since we have no one in the audience today other than staff, unless there's some staff that wants to make a public comment, we'll move on to the topics for discussion. First and only is budget workshop.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commission. Robin Gomez, City Manager, and Andrew Laughlin, our City Treasurer, Finance Director, is here as well as other city staff that will likely come up and speak throughout our presentation. But the purpose today is just to give you a preliminary status of our current fiscal 22 budget through mid-year, through the first 6 months of the year, provide an update on sort of our fund balances across for the general fund, and also to go over our proposed capital improvement project budget for fiscal 23. And certainly answer any questions, any comments. Again, this is just a workshop, the first one we are having, and of likely several. And so a lot of this is very preliminary information. Well, the information for fiscal 23 is very preliminary. So certainly subject to additions, modifications, changes, anything to that effect. So Andrew, I'll turn it over.
Sure, great, thank you. So as Robin said, a few things that we want to accomplish in this meeting. So first of all, we can talk a little bit about just the budget workshop process. A few of you already have prior experience on years past and how we've gone through the budget adoption process. But to the two newcomers, I'll give a quick overview. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of where we are year to date, what our audited financial statements look like from September 30, 2021, in terms of our available, what we call fund balance net position. It's really kind of our reserves, what we have available from the last fiscal year to fund current and future operating capital expenditures. And then I've given you both very summarized at the fund level and at the department level, revenues and other inflows, both historical, current year to date, as well as what the current budget is, budget for the year, and then that percent utilized. For most, we should see probably right around up to 50%, since all this information has been presented through March 31st, 2022, which is halfway through the fiscal year, for the fiscal year ending September 30, 2022. So what I'd probably like to do is, once we get to the financial piece of it, and then the capital overview, we can kind of take it department by department. We've got the department heads here, and maybe knock out both. And so we can go focus on one department, look at their capital wish list of items over that 5-year capital improvement plan, and then ask any questions you have, and probably just take this department by department. At least that's how I think would be probably the best use of time. So you can focus on your questions and taking it for each department. So the way the process works, so this one, I want to be heavily focused on our 5-year capital improvement plan. And so that's what the last section of our packet that we put together has all of the both capital equipment, vehicles, and improvement items, projects, et cetera, broken out by department. And so this is required to have this to you in pretty much in near final form, according to the city's charter, within 3 months prior to the beginning of the fiscal year. So that'd be by July 1st. We want to present at least our first draft to you now. And then I'd like to have another workshop. And again, we can discuss timing, but would make sense to me, maybe again, to proceed the workshop in June. So it'd be June 20 something. And we can maybe finalize our 5-year capital improvement plan based on your feedback this evening. And then I also want to present to you all the more full comprehensive budget. So that'll include our budget forecast for next year revenue and next year operating expenses, both personnel and operating, and give you the full picture. Usually we don't, in years past, we haven't even really done that until more in the July, August timeframe, but I like to accelerate that and do that in June. That gives us plenty of time in July and August to tweak things. So hopefully that works with your timing. And so once we then complete that budget workshop, then we can schedule as many workshops as you want in the July, August, up to September timeframe. My goal would be, if we're starting working backwards, the end goal is to go through our process to finalize both the budget and the ad valorem taxes in September through 2 public hearings, 2 readings, and we'll do those both in September. So my goal would be, let's have everything buttoned up, finalized by the end of August, early September. So our really focus in September will just be the formality of finalizing our millage rate and our adopted budget. And that's going to be through 2 public hearings. That would be my goal. So giving us, starting this process now, giving you a full budget to look at by the second meeting, another budget workshop that precedes the regular workshop in June, to give you that whole picture. And then we can spend July and August tweaking as needed based on your feedback and giving you any other information that you might want to see prior to getting fully comfortable after we present you with the documentation in June. So that would be my goal, but certainly would love to hear your feedback if you have any thoughts to the contrary. So that's the plan there. I guess I'll stop now. Any questions on that or concerns with the timing, or does that all sound pretty good so far?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So now let's kind of look at where we are to date, and I've given you all this in the past, and I love showing it. It does provide a rather favorable depiction of our fund balance. And so that's on page 4 of 56. This is our fund balance benchmarking analysis, taking other municipalities in the area. So we use as our peer benchmark, City of Seminole. We could not obtain their FY 2021 audit. It wasn't published yet, so we used their 2020 audited results. And then the 2021 audit results from City of Treasure Island, City of St. Pete Beach, City of Indian Rocks Beach, and City of Dunedin. So what we show is our total fund balance this is all in the general fund, total fund balance, total unassigned fund balance, total operating expenditures, and then capital outlay. And then subtracting that gets you total personnel and operating. So we've got then our ratios, fund balance to total operating expenses, and then unassigned fund balance to personnel and operating. So in both of for the City of Madeira Beach, we are looking favorable in relation to our peer group as of September 30, 2021. This doesn't necessarily mean let's just open up a piggy bank and spend needlessly. We've got to be judicious and spend wisely, but we are not in any sort of, based on these figures, we're not in any sort of financial duress. We're actually, if you look at our balance sheet and P&L for the City of Madeira Beach, especially compared to its peer group, it does look favorable through September 30, 2021. At 184% of FB to total operating expenses, and then unassigned fund balance to personnel and operating at 140%. So we've got enough reserves to cover well over a year of personnel and operating in the general fund. So just wanted to show you that. Let's talk a little bit before we get into the summary of funds by revenues and expenses. Let's just talk a little bit about funding sources. So what are our available funding sources? So that you all know, historically and even currently, most of our capital expenditures, if they apply, if they're allowed, are in our Fund 310, which is our local option sales tax fund. So starting on page 6 of 56, these are all your funds. The Archibald Building, Debt Service, Gas Tax, General Fund, Local Option Sales Tax Fund, Marina Fund, Sanitation Fund, Stormwater Fund. So all your capital expenditures are pretty much, if they're not in an enterprise fund, which would be your marina fund, your sanitation fund, and your stormwater fund. Any of those enterprise fund related expenditures would remain in those enterprise funds, and they're typically funded by revenues derived from those funds. So the marina fund has a variety of revenue sources, ship store sales, fuel sales, slip rentals, et cetera. And then it can fund both its operating and capital projects based on its revenues as well as what it has available in fund balance and reserves. Sanitation fund, similarly, so a lot of where we purchasing vehicles and trucks, that would be out of the sanitation fund. Stormwater fund, our revenues are not significant in that fund. We get our stormwater fee, and that pretty much funds our personnel and operating, but doesn't really fund capital. So we did issue a significant amount of debt. It's our series 2019 note, which I think was to the tune of maybe $15 to $20 million to fund a variety of stormwater management improvement projects, of which some have been completed or some are still in process. So most of the capital related activity in the stormwater fund has been fueled by debt proceeds. And the stormwater itself cannot pay for principal and interest over time. So the general fund does provide a transfer every year to help service the principal and interest on the debt to the stormwater fund. Archibald Park Fund, so that has its own revenue source, primarily from parking revenue within Archibald. It has any capital related projects or equipment, vehicles that relate to the beautification or improvement of Archibald Park or even operation would be funded out of those revenues. Building fund has its own revenue source from permit fees. It has a very healthy fund balance. Frank and I were just looking at that as of 9/30/21. That was $625,000 of fund balance available in the building fund.
Andrew, can I interrupt you real quick? Can you explain to our two newest commissioners the Archibald Fund? Not that you didn't explain it, but that there are other uses of the revenues out of there. I mean, we can use them for other parks in the city and the likes of that. It's not all just dedicated towards Archibald. I mean, I think that makes a little sense, because when you look at it, you're saying, oh my gosh, do we spend $600,000 cleaning up Archibald Park on a regular basis, or $1 million or whatever the number is? Just so everybody knows that the way that fund is set up, it allows us to spend money in other areas of the city for parks and other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
facilities, right?
So there are some broader uses when the fund was established and the funding source was established. There was the use included both the beautification, improvement of the park, as well as general recreation activities. So it was more broad. And I remember when we did the parking fee adjustment, I had that in my agenda memo. I can actually pull it up and read what the specific allowable uses are, but it did extend beyond just park improvements to also include recreation activities throughout the city. So there is some leeway in how we can spend the money, as long as it's justifiable and fits within the confines of that allowable use requirement. But yeah, thanks, Doug, for asking for that clarification. Debt service fund, that's just for payment of debt service. Gas tax fund is just for payment on streets and road improvements. And then general fund, we generally try to shy away from spending capital in the general fund unless we have a dedicated funding source. So I typically hesitate, and I've worked with other municipalities that use the general fund as a piggy bank to fund long-term projects, and that gets dangerous if you don't have a reliable funding source. Because for one, you're using general fund dollars to build it, and then you've also got to maintain it. So preferably, we'd have a dedicated funding source within the general fund we're talking for capital. So typically, I like general fund unassigned fund balance, unreserved fund balance to be available for personnel and operating. If it's capital, that should be more the exception than the norm to be funded out of the general fund, unless we've got a dedicated funding source. And we do have a few. We have two that are, that bear mention. So one is the ARPA. So the American Rescue Plan Act proceeds, we're a little over $2 million that's available. We've gotten, I think, $1,077,000 through 2021, and we'll be getting the next tranche probably in the summer or fall. And we've got until 2024, December of 2024 to commit that. And we've got till 2026 to fully expend it. So we can start planning, utilizing projects now for, that will be used for ARPA. And so we have some projects in here that might not qualify for the local option sales tax that will be funded out of the general fund, and we can use ARPA dollars for that. And the others, we still have about almost $400,000 in BP money. So we had $383,544 of unspent BP money back from a little 10 years ago or so. That is also available, and there is absolutely no restriction on that. And there's no restriction on the ARPA funds as well, as long as it's available. It's used for government services, which can include capital-related activities.
And the BP oil spill.
Okay.
The Deepwater Horizon from 2011, 2010, 2011, every municipality and quite a few private businesses were able to file claims.
In
And
coastal communities,
BP
yeah.
paid out hundreds of millions of dollars, and seems like Madeira Beach received, I don't know how much, but
I'm not sure what the original.
we still have $387,000 that have,
You were talking.
yeah, that's the BP oil
Yeah.
available fund money revenue.
So yeah, we've got, in addition to our unassigned fund balance, which is almost 11 million, at 9/30/21, we've also got a 2.4 million emergency reserve. So in years past, we've passed resolutions to establish it, and then we passed a resolution to cap it. And so it's been capped at 2,409,363 and has remained untouched. So that 10.7 million of unassigned fund balance in the general fund does not include the emergency reserve. And then also we have the 383,544 of available BP funds that we can spend. So not to say, hey, let's go crazy and go on a spending spree, but we do have some leeway. Why I would normally shudder to see a capital improvement project or equipment or vehicle purchased in the general fund. Because we receive those ARPA proceeds and we do have available BP money, I feel better if we do want to expend money out of the general fund on the capital side. And then the last one I'll talk about is just the local option sales tax fund. So this can only be used on infrastructure. So this is our penny for Pinellas money. It is restricted as to use on local government infrastructure, which includes general government buildings and public safety vehicles and related equipment on those vehicles. So a lot of our fire purchases, like our fire truck, would be out of that lost fund, as well as any other infrastructure project and construction of a government, even a government administrative building. So there's some restriction into how we can use those lost funds. So, but to the extent that it does apply, that's a good place to put it, because it is only capital. We cannot pay for operating expenditures out of our lost fund.
You know, the lost being the other cities refer to it as a penny for Pinellas.
Yeah.
Just in case you.
And
May
you
have
can
heard
see, and you can see we get about
600,000 is the budget for the current year,
is the budget. Yep.
or 597,000 in the local option sales or penny for Pinellas.
Yeah. And we're already at 315,000 through 6 months.
So I was just going to say, which is going towards the undergrounding.
No,
Pennies for
that's penny 4. So that's different.
Okay,
So this is other available penny money.
okay.
Yep.
Question, we're going to start impact fees in August. Where will those end up in these funds?
Good, yeah, good
Yeah.
question. So
We need to create a fund.
we've got options on that. So we can create a separate impact fee fund. So
That's-
I've worked with communities that have done that, separate create separate distinct funds, or we can establish restricted accounts that take in the money within, let's say, the general fund. So we've got options there, as long as we are partitioning, segregating those proceeds, because they can only be spent on extension improvement type expenditures.
So we haven't, it's gonna be called our impact fee fund, and that we will create, projects to be funded out of that. We just began collecting that revenue as of April 1. And so we'll have a much better, first 4 months, see how it goes. So essentially through July, and then we'll come back with realistically in our August workshop with a little bit more detail and perhaps a plan for next year that might be just very nominal, being that we won't have a full year's worth of collection. So we really won't have that much data, but we'll
Right.
see what we can come up with.
Typically, yeah, in the first months to year of collections, you kind of build up your supply, then you start planning out your projects to fund.
Yeah, and that was broken down into certain amounts of that fund being used for certain things within the city. So.
Yep. And we can put it all in one, we could put it all in one fund. I don't think we haven't come to a full conclusion on yet, but we can put it all in one fund and have your different categories.
Because there's
Okay.
3 categories.
Transportation, recreation,
Safety.
public
I think it's
safety.
public safety.
Yeah, my preference would be definitely create a different fund. I hate money just going into the general fund willy-nilly. Create a separate fund. This way we know where it is. It's much easier to find, much easier to track, much easier for us to say, okay, this is working, this isn't working. Because if I remember correctly, this is going to be coming up for vote just about every year, right? We're going to be talking about impact fees on a regular basis going forward. So just want to make sure that we know what we're
Yeah.
swinging at. Okay, thanks.
Yep, sounds good, yeah. Okay. Well, at this point, any other questions on what I've discussed so far? If not, what I'd probably suggest is to maybe kind of go fund by fund, fund and department, and we can walk through the capital requests as well as if you have any questions on some of the budget to actual variances or any numbers that you wanted to scrutinize further, we can address that at a fund/department level. And maybe we can just kind of go one by one, and most of the department heads are here, and we can just bring up one at a time and see if you have any questions, comments, or
Andrew, can I make a suggestion? Last year, we did an exercise that I think really benefited us all, that we really scrutinized and went over payroll and positions and along the lines of that. Robin and I have had a discussion, and I'll say it point blankly to everybody today. We did a really good job on it, but we didn't really finish it last year, and we left a couple of things unclogged. I think it's a really, really good exercise to find out, because let's be realistic, inflation is going to hit our budget again this year. We're going to have to address the fact that our workers are going to need increases in their wages based on inflation. So we have to make sure that all of our employees are categorized correctly, that the past mistakes in the past, that, somebody was an interim director for 3 days and they got a pay increase and that pay increase never came down, is addressed, that everybody is within their salary range. I won't sign off on anything this year if we're not completely up to date. And these guys all know this. Look, I know Dave's worked for a big company before. I know John's worked for a big company before. I don't know much about your guys' backgrounds as far as budget time is it depends if your department's doing good, it's a really, really good time, or if it's not, it's a really, really bad time. And you're forced to defend not only your expenses, but you're forced to defend your payroll. And I think it's important that our directors know where every penny's going and where everything's doing, because as good as those reports that you just went through sound, we get a lot of things coming up that have got to be paid for, and we've got to be the ones that start planning for this, not just going out there willy-nilly and say, oh, well, let's just grab $15 million to go do this project or do that project. We hopefully learned our lesson from the Crystal Island project, that you don't go out and get money before the project and then dangle it in front of the contractors and say, hey, what do you want to bid on it? Unbelievably, they all came in around $15 million. So I just want to make everybody cognizant of that. It is great that we are not in any kind of duress, as Andrew put it, but we have to be looking a generation ahead because we got a lot of stuff to do. And every time we do one of these road projects and we don't underground the utilities on these back streets, makes the back of my head fly off, because that's something that we really, really have to concentrate on going forward. That's got to be a part of this plan. We're in a more than above average affluent community that, if we have the money to do these projects, let's do them right from here on in. Let's get, let's start those projects and start getting these things done correctly so that we don't leave a burden for the next group of people that come up here. Just my personal opinion, but my original point was, let's leave off individual positions. I don't even know if you have that on here.
No, we weren't planning to bring
go
that,
that
discuss
deep? Okay.
today. No, but you make extremely good comments, Mr. Vice Mayor, and that's what we're working on for the June workshop will be to bring personnel and operating costs for each department. And so we're working on that over the next several weeks to complete that and bring that back to you. I think what Andrew was bringing up is if there's any questions for the first half of the current fiscal year, and then we'll get into the capital portion of the meeting, or we can do that now, really, it's up to all of you, but what the purpose is really just if any questions for what's happened so far in the first 6 months of this year, I will tell you from, looking through all this data, there isn't anything of significant consequence or anything that really sticks out. In some areas, typically you'll have a little bit of overtime. We have, some expenditures that may have, a little bit above budget, but nothing significant. Our revenues are coming in as close to as forecasted. Certainly some are a little bit better than others. Our largest revenue source, the ad valorem tax or the property tax, I think we're at over 80% of the collection for the whole year. 94, even better. But that really begins right in October or November, because you can begin paying as early as November. So we receive the majority of that at the beginning of the year as our data shows. Other revenues obviously kind of come in monthly as the year progresses. So really nothing that really stands out. We haven't had any major expenses or any significant emergencies. We moved up a capital expenditure for the sand rake that the commission approved a few meetings ago. That was planned for next year, but decided to move it up in lieu of spending about $25,000 to repair a 6 or 7 year piece of equipment that's essentially at the end of its life. And so nothing really, again, stands out. Our parking revenues obviously are a little higher than a little bit than budget due to the rate increase primarily. But of course, we've had a lot more visitors this year than apparently in the last few years. And I'm only saying that anecdotally from what people have been telling me in the businesses. And since I've only been here for 5 months and only 2 on the island. So we're as Andrew stated, overall, not just looking at our reserves, but even the first half of the current fiscal year, continuing with that trend of our revenues exceeding our expenditures just about throughout most of our funds. So really, if there were any questions or anything that any of you had, this would be a good time, to bring up.
No, the numbers, I gotta be honest, the numbers are great. It could be a testament to good leadership, but I don't want you to get comfortable over there. But the big question is there, as of right now, we're not planning any millage rate increases. There's not.
No, definitely not proposing any millage rate increases. And again, we won't know until we receive the tax roll in June.
Yes.
Usually the early part of June, I believe we're required to adopt a millage by the early part of July. If
Yeah.
I'm just recalling, but yeah, we're not proposing by any means to increase. I mean, if anything, I would, from my perspective, could we go in the other direction? I'd have to see what the tax roll is before I can tell you, yes or no, but I will say that, we're in a much better position to go in the other direction than to go with an increase.
Yeah, I was looking at, depending on how things come out, I would love to see us go to the rollback rate this year. And I know it's early to say that, but I think that's something we at least need to look very seriously at this year.
So our initial submission is within X number of days after the tax roll becomes available, and it usually comes out at the very beginning of August. I think last year was August 4th. So we'll put forth our proposed budget. And we can base that on the same rate as the 2.75 mils, which has been that consistently for the last few years. And then, yeah, we can have that open discussion, just have a dialogue, knowing that our deadline is end of July, early August, but let's talk about it in our next meeting of what we want, what we're, want to see on the millage rate.
Thank you. I'll be quiet now.
So what we can do is just kind of run through fund and department, and if there's any specific questions, and we can just do it alphabetically. I know Megan Webfer's out this week, so she won't be able to address questions specifically, but between Robin and I, we can try to do our best. So Archibald is the first. So the detail of revenues and expenses related to Archibald are on page 13 and 56. So you can kind of get a little sense of where we're at. We're pretty much right on, as of March 31st, right on track at 48% on revenues. And then we're very budget actual favorable on expenses at 23% through 3/31. And then there are 9 different capital related items that Megan put forth within Archibald Department that will all go into the Archibald Fund and our capital improvement plan, totaling a little over 3 million. So based on that, do we have any questions or anything else that you want to see? Or does that look good?
Andrew, my page numbers are not matching up with yours. I don't know if I'm the only one.
It's on the actual, I'm looking at the bottom of the actual document itself where we have the page numbers, pages numbered.
Yeah, online it says 14, but at the bottom of the page it says 13. So that's.
Got it, yeah. If you could look at the,
Okay,
we're probably one off.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and then the capital that Andrew mentioned is, well, I guess what I'm looking at, page 49 of 56.
Yeah.
For Archibald, specifically the 9 items that are listed for capital in the Archibald Fund. Again, page 49 of 56. There are 5 for next fiscal year, which include some beach access improvements. We included the pocket parks, replace a dump truck, maintenance exterior to the bathroom building at Archibald, as there are many cracks and some of the concrete cement is starting to fall off from the bottom of the structure. And then, of course, continue with the beach groin renourishment project, which is a 50% match from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So really the big ones, other than the groins, are the beach access improvements, which are from 131st through 136th avenues on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. And that includes the milling and the resurfacing of each one of those parking lots as well as Gulf Lane. And it includes, I'm not sure if the letters have gone out directly, but we have notified a few property owners of the work that's going to be happening, but also just to notify them of certain items that are encroaching onto the right of way. And so that's what this whole project is really the improvements for those access points, those parking areas and the Gulf Lane, excuse me. And then again, any of the items that we discussed today, again, they're subject to, I mean, obviously any of your comments, any changes, any modifications, additions, removals, by all means. That's the purpose of this workshop. The bathroom building, we've had some recent issues with plumbing that closed the bathrooms for a couple of days. As well as I said, the building's just in bad shape. It's also it is not ADA compliant. When you're going up the ramp from the walkway in front of the beach access up to the building. And then there are some other oddities as you continue from the walkway around the bathroom building over to the patio where the snack shack is. So we originally did not include this for next year, but it needs these improvements that have not happened in quite some time. And I think staff might know better than I, but I know Megan mentioned that there have been no significant renovations to this building since she's been here. So we really want to accomplish that in this next year.
Mr. Gomez, just, sorry if this sounds obvious. So this is an example of what Mr. Andrews was saying, that Archibald revenue goes to other parts of the city, not just to Archibald.
Mhm.
This is an example of that.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. I know it
Yep.
seems obvious, just wanted to say it out loud for my own clarification.
Yes.
So in terms of funding source on this, we had at September 30, 2021, we had 668,000 of available fund balance. Revenues were 578,000, expenses were 513,000. So we brought 64,000 to the bottom line in 21. In 22, year-to-date actual revenues are a bit higher than expenses, but we do have some big capital. We had a big capital, 2.65 million in the capital budget. I think some of that was the beach renourishment that's not, that we haven't started incurring those expenditures yet. So the Archibald Fund can absorb a lot of this in 23, but it's at some point we would need to be looking at an additional funding source. And we do have some grant matching on the beach renourishment, which will be helpful. So can this fund absorb all this? Maybe in 2023, but over time it would deplete fund balance. But right now, yeah, we're looking at about a $670,000 fund balance to start in the beginning of 22. And right now revenues are a little higher than expenditures.
Now on this, the matching grant on the drawings, I remember when we talked about this during the last budget meetings, we talked about going ahead and getting it done this next year. But I see two different payouts here, 2023 and 2024. So is that project or is it not moving forward this fall?
No, it's moving forward. We're just not sure whether it will get completed entirely in 23. It doesn't look like it will. So that's why we pushed it out to 2024.
Okay, so.
But it is starting this fall.
So
Yeah.
what will we do? Start on the south end, which is probably where we need it the worst.
Don't remember if we were starting on the south or the north. I think it was north to south, but we'll have to follow up, but I'm pretty
So
sure.
we're going to totally complete a certain number of them, then the following year, do a
Yes.
certain number again. Because I don't think we can do it during turtle season.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. On that Archibald Park, on the, well, it's 51 of 58 in the packet we have. It's 49 of 56 on the packet you have, so I have to add 2 pages when we talk about that. But Archibald starts, the description starts in 23, And I'm kind of looking back at the first couple of pages there where you have the budget. 1,011,660. Is part of that the beach groins as well, the beach renourishment? Because only 23% of that has been spent. I'm just trying to figure out the detail. Where the rest of that capital improvement is. If you're following me. Because this is all 2022. It's 1,011,660 was in the budget, only 234.
Yeah,
Thousands been
so it's two
spent.
different years. You're looking, the pages toward the front of the packet are for the current year.
No, I understand. So you have, but you're only 23% of that, those expenses have been paid so far year to date, or as of March 30th. So if I go back
So-
to, what's the page for the Archibald breakdown?
Yeah, on page 14 of 56,
It's,
we had capital improvements budgeted of 470,000 and then zero
we
spent
haven't
thus far
spent any.
through March. I don't know exactly where we're at today.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. Capital improvements is zero,
Correct, actual, yes.
but is there a breakdown on those capital improvements and
On the budget?
Yeah.
On that
for
470?
2022?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can pull that up.
But it's not in our package.
Correct, it's in the 2022 adopted budget, which I can,
Okay, yeah, I was just looking through and trying to figure out where those numbers were coming from.
gotcha. Any other questions on Archibald? Now, if we're going alphabetically down the list, I can bring Frank up and we can talk building.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here to discuss budget with you. Have any questions?
So on page 15 of 56, that provides the detail of revenues and expenses in the building fund, and there's only one department in the building fund, that's the Building Services Department. And then the capital needs over a 5-year period are on page 49 of 56. Any specific questions on building? I know Frank and I discussed the building permit revenue. A lot of that's dependent on timing, so we have a couple big projects that'll yield.
Yeah, I have two permits that are downstairs awaiting to be stamped. And both of those, one's condo A and the other one's the Azul. Both of those are worth $500,000. So we can easily add 500,000 to that current 367. And just to let you know, on that 367, which was the current for the 6 months, I ran a report this past Monday, and that 367 is actually 412 as of Monday. So 412 plus that 500, and I still have one more big project that should be here by September 30th. So I feel very comfortable with that. Good, 28%, I think it was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we planning to do with all this money in the building fund?
Well, it's funny you say that.
Yeah.
I had a couple of things on capital improvement that I was looking at,
planning.
4 different items on there that I was looking at, hopefully spending some money on. The biggest one is the downstairs project. It's a expansion of the downstairs. It's right below us, which would be where the elevator is downstairs. I wanted to build that small section out for code enforcement and the deputies, the county deputies. It would be called the satellite office. That's what they call them. I have some information here from the deputies that I did a little research on it, but that square footage below us, I'd like to build that out and specifically call it a satellite office for code enforcement and the deputies that would come out of the reserve funds. And I did talk to Captain Liner from Pinellas County to get some information on that. And he said there's only 13 contracted cities in Pinellas County. And as far as the satellites themselves, satellite offices, the locations are in Indian Rocks Beach, Bel Air Bluffs, Bel Air Beach, and St. Pete Beach, and hopefully us. We'd be the only satellite offices on the west side of the county. So it'd be a big benefit to the county deputies.
Would
sorry.
they participate in that? Would the county participate? The
As-
sheriff's department as far as building that out?
As far as money wise, no.
Okay.
No. All it is, again, it's a satellite office. It's a day room. And it's a place for the deputies to come in, sit down, do their paperwork, relax, make a sandwich in the microwave, and a small TV on the wall. And then code enforcement, we use it for a couple offices, our code enforcement.
But Mayor and Commission, you know that I will ask
Okay.
the sheriff.
Well, probably a huge advantage just having them, a place for them to stay here. It
Yeah.
gives us
Yeah.
more security and like that. Frank, are you talking directly that circular portion underneath this?
Well, it's not so
with
much a
storage?
circular portion. If you come in from the stairs, instead of going to the building department, you go to the elevator. What I want to do is I want to enclose that space from the elevator to the golf carts and to the other side of the stairs. So it's just
One of the-
2/3 of downstairs, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be enclosed, it'd be all concrete, it would, nothing fancy, painted. It would be, dry proofed per FEMA, just like our side is. But again, it's just a simple place for the deputies to get out of the weather, sit down, and do their paperwork. I had a couple notes here, Captain Liner called it a safe and secure facility with bathrooms will generate traffic and promote usage. So it's a big benefit to the county deputies for us to have a satellite office downstairs, and I could call it code enforcement and use my reserve funds to build it.
Okay.
And up
Now,
on, let's say up on the screen is kind of the capital for that Frank was just describing, the 150,000
Yeah.
preliminary estimate.
Yeah, and exactly, that's what it is. You're talking just a block wall downstairs, 2 doors, block wall. And we want to open up that storage area for our other departments so they can have easier access for the storage underneath it with an overhead door right below.
and that's the round part you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's a storage area that the other departments use. I use that storage area also. That's how we got the install concrete floors, and building department paid for all that.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
Frank, this doesn't mean that we'll get more sheriffs, right?
Oh, no,
Just
it's
for the
not
guys
more
we've
sheriff.
Already got,
It's
because it
it's,
sounds nice, a satellite office there. We can get
yeah,
more.
that's what they call it, a satellite office. We call it a day room. Down Manatee
Okay.
County, we call it a day room. It's just a place for the deputies 24/7
Right.
to get out of
So
the.
for the
heat
guys that
sun.
are already here.
Yeah, the existing
Exactly.
deputies.
Got it.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, on the guys that are already here, again, these are notes from the Captain Liner. There's 2 CPOs, which are communities, General Patrol, which is 2 folks per day and 2 per night, the sergeant, the captain, and code enforcement,
Got it. Thanks.
24/7.
Right, and so right now, when they come to here, their day room is essentially our locker rooms over here.
Yeah.
The bathroom, the little locker room. That's where they go to respite, or occasionally if city hall's open, they'll come in and sit down for a few minutes or use the restroom. This would be a little bit more comfortable, just essentially for them and code staff.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and it could even be a little more fancy than what you're saying. I
yes,
think.
yeah.
I mean, you could actually give them offices or something like that, that's locked. But you already have 2 or 3 times that amount of money in your reserve now. Is there, we talked about trying to be the building inspectors for the beaches that have more people. Is that still somewhat the plan? Or is it time to maybe not charge quite as much for building?
Well, believe it or not, our building fees are average with everybody up and down the coast, all the beach communities up and down. So they're average numbers. But as far as expanding out, we still want to expand out. We're just not at that point yet. I think with that extra room downstairs, that would help with the deputies. But we still want to expand out. And another point too I wanted to make was I'm going to the annual Building Officials Conference in Orlando the second week of June. And the discussion with the reserve funds, that's one of the roundtable discussions there. We're trying to decide, all the building officials throughout the state of Florida, we're trying to decide what we can and cannot do with it, how much we need to keep in reserves, things like that. So it's going to be a big discussion this year in June.
Are there additional revenue dollars that, do they have anything to do with the impact fees?
No, sir, that's completely separate from me. Impact fees are all with community development, nothing with building department. The only thing we do downstairs is when we issue that permit, they, planning and zoning, determine what the impact fees are per square foot. So when that circles back to us at the permit desk, we'll plug those numbers into the computer and software, and we'll collect that money for them. We don't have a penny of that.
Yep.
Hmm? Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kerr, just very, or to all of you quickly, I put up the current capital for the Archibald Fund for the current fiscal year. So it looked like ADA improvements and then 400,000 for the beach groins renourishment. So that's the 470,000 capital that you were looking at a few moments ago. But this document up on the screen is from the current year's adopted budget information or budget book. What you have, the packet for today's meeting does not have.
No, I understand, but again, I mean, it's the number that's jumping off the
Yeah,
page
is that
for
we
me
haven't
is,
spent it.
you know, it's $1 million of what is in the adopted budget. We only spent 234. So what was the rest budgeted for?
That's
A big
400.
piece is 400,000 for the beach groins. Great. I'm just trying to figure out where it was budgeted for.
Good question. Okay. If no other questions on building, next on the list, information technology, we had just one proposed capital related item that was $10,000 for an email backup system. And if no other questions on that, then on the next page is fire department EMS. Clint's here and he can address any questions you might have on that. That's page 50 of 56. And then
Oh, for fire, right, fire department.
we have department on page 30 of 56. Shows revenue and expense information year to date, if you had any questions on operating results as well.
And again, and for fire, the biggest, or, right, is replacing the 2014 Ford Explorer that was delayed a little bit, and then replacing the Pierce engine with the aerial that we should be receiving later this year, hopefully, I'm not sure.
So that was gonna be July.
Yeah, we just received an updated email yesterday from Rosenbauer that projected delivery date for the new ladder truck is mid-July. And then in reference to the replacement of the 2014 Ford Explorer, we just did a PO rollover into FY '23 because they haven't even started building it yet. And we put that PO in December.
And then I talked to Clint about this and I wanted to propose something on that Rosenbauer aerial for the fire truck replacement. Initially, when we were going through the planning process and ordering the truck, we thought it was prudent to finance it over time because interest rates were at historic lows. And it kind of made sense because our interest, our earnings, our investment earnings in our Hancock Whitney investment account were running at about 2.3, 2.4%. We got this amazing deal back in, I think, 2018, when we renewed with our bank, that they took the prevailing kind of money market rate at the time and locked that in over a 3-year period, which then expires in September of 2022. So we've been continually earning just amazing amount of interest, even in this very low interest rate environment. So it was no risk, virtually no risk it's totally liquid. We have our operating account and then we just sweep any excess to our investment account with Hancock, with our bank Hancock Whitney, and we're earning 2.3 to 2.4%. Amazing. Unfortunately, that party is ending in September as that agreement is expiring. So, and the bank predictably is not going to honor that renewal. So we need to start looking at other investment avenues once that time comes and diversify our money elsewhere. Why do I bring this up? So back then, it made more sense to finance because our interest rate on the financing arrangement would be the same or possibly even less than what we're earning. So now that has dramatically shifted. So what I would suggest is coming to you all, if delivery is truly going to be end of July, coming to you all later in the summer with a proposed budget amendment to purchase this outright, which I think we've already paid $200 and something thousand already.
220 for the down payment,
And the total all-in cost is 800, 900.
825, I believe.
So
Give or take.
our cash position is very strong. I think we have total of all investment, cash and investment is about $32 million. So I feel it's better for the city. We can save on maybe 10 to 15 to $20,000 of interest costs over the life of this financing deal and just buy this outright. So that would be my suggestion as your finance guy. Let's save on interest costs. We do have available cash to purchase it, and we can exclude the future principal and interest payments in our capital plan and go ahead and buy this thing outright. If you all are in agreement, then I can put a budget amendment out there to go ahead and make that purchase in entirety, minus the already $207,000 down payment for when the truck is ready, late July, early August.
Dang, Clint, you're expensive.
Haven't even made my budget proposal yet.
Okay, so it sounds like I've got some.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a fantastic idea, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Great. You already know my aversion to leasing with that enterprise program, so where I can buy and we've got the money.
Yeah, well, we're
Let's do
backing
it.
out of that. I mean, have we thought about the SUV that you've got going electric? Is that a non-starter for the fire department?
It could be. It's
Yeah.
just we had already put in the purchase order for this gas V8 F-150, assuming that it would be built. So when we presented that to the Florida Sheriff's bid list, the electric truck wasn't out yet. So we actually looked, and then with Frank getting the new electric truck, we looked into possibly purchasing his old truck because it's better than what the fire inspector is driving now. But we didn't realize he was getting $25,000 trade-in for it. So then we opted another 15, we'll just get a brand new truck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can look at the PO with the vendor, definitely. If they haven't started building, we haven't paid them a dime yet. We just did a promissory type of agreement.
Well, it's just a thought, and you could
Yeah.
probably go through the same. That was a state.
When Frank's projected to get his truck in September, ours hasn't even been started building yet.
Yeah, so,
It's definitely an option, something to look into, and that's why we were looking at purchasing his old truck. 'Cause,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a route to go if
Yeah.
it would even work for the fire department as far, but it, you know.
The
so-
charging station would be interesting to look at, because the fire inspector does take that vehicle home, so having to charge it at home, there'd be a cost associated with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, unless it makes it the round trip, and, I mean, I don't know how far away that is. But
Yeah, he's not far. He's right off Tyrone.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Hang on.
Commissioner, sorry.
The paper was talking about a Reddington fire station,
Mhm.
that we were going to supply people. We're gonna supply bodies. Were we also going to supply equipment or anything else?
So this, right where it stands right now, this is a county-funded project to the there was a study done in 2017 that showed a void in response into the Reddington areas. And they need a lift station over there, so the county decided to build a lift station there, but also put an EMS station because the county they're not concerned with fires, Pinellas County EMS. So with that being said, in the fire contracts that us, Madeira Beach Fire Department and Seminole Fire Department split, it states that we will man the EMS station whenever it is built. So that's where we're at with the EMS station being built in the Reddingtons.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still the email I got last said projected date was 2025. So we
Okay,
have,
that's fine.
and that actually coincides with our next ISO review, which we're so close to being a 1. We're right there almost. And it's actually a really big deal for a small department of this size to even be as high of a 2 as we are. So with that, we'll have to increase our staffing because we're geographically isolated according to NFPA. And they say that we have to have 5 responding to a first due fire call. But that's until 2025.
Those numbers, those years,
Yeah,
it's further out than what they said.
yes.
And the chief is way too humble to admit this, but this was a dead deal about 3 years ago before he got involved. And then all of a sudden, here we go. We're splitting it with Seminole. So congratulations,
Thank you.
chief. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And all that just to maybe slightly offset that Rosenbauer cost, we did see a massive uptick in fire department related revenues for fire inspection fees. And I have to pay a compliment to Chief Bell because we implemented new software last summer to handle our business tax receipts. And Chief had the brilliant idea to say, well, let's include for all of these business tax receipts that go out, the fire inspection fee on that invoice and allow to pay all as one. Whereas before, we would separately invoice for fire inspection fees and our collection rate was rather low. So now with this new software, they're both on there. They can pay all in once. And we offer a more convenient online payment option. So our revenues went from about $3,000 last year in FY21, and now we're over $22,000 of collections in FY22. So that's quite a jump. Not that that pays for an $800,000 truck, but hey, it's something.
Every little bit
Every
helps.
bit helps. That's right. Getting there.
Okay, next on the list is John's Pass Village. We had on page 51 of 56, we had 4 projects on that for 165,000. John's Pass Village is a department within the general fund. So this would be paid out of general fund sources. So total of 165,000 for John's Pass Village. Unless it's building improvements, then it could be funded out of the local option sales tax fund. Any questions on John's Pass Village?
I have one, Andrew. What I don't see on here, and maybe it's already taken place, we've proposed doing a wrap or a reconstruction of some of the boardwalk underneath the pass. I know it's been inspected, it's been looked at numerous times. Megan probably has all the information on it, so I can wait and hold it for her. But do we have any update on that? Does anybody?
I'm sorry.
So, you know, the pilings under the boardwalk, it's been a topic of conversation probably for the 3+ years I've been up here. Had a bunch of proposals. We have some deteriorating pylons underneath there. So is that something that we're still working on?
We did have a report
Okay.
provided. I remember if it was January or February, but yeah, we do have that on there and we'll look to see
I
what we
imagine,
need.
I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
that's.
there's some
her-
repairs needed.
Yeah, her
Might
boardwalk.
be for, I think one of them is for that, for the current, for 2023, but we'll confirm that.
Yeah, it looks like it's a 2-year project running 2023 to 24 for 100,000, 50,000 each year. I imagine that's covers everything you're discussing, Vice Mayor. Hendricks.
Probably what you're looking, yep, that would seem to be about right. Yep, thanks.
Next is Marina. Krabby's here if you have any specific questions on Marina. So we've got 3 projects listed, 3 capital-related items listed. I know the ADT camera installation, that was from a previous budget, but ADT has been slow to complete that. So we've had to budget now some in 2023. And then a seawall project and a resurfacing. That's on page 51 of 56. And then we also have financial information related to Marina. That is on page 18 and 19 of 56. So any questions you have? Shoot.
All's quiet at the marina.
Just taking care of business.
Yeah, don't say that too.
I think, I mean, Mayor and
We got a
Commissioner,
big
really one of the
weekend
biggest
coming.
impacts would be, I mean, to a certain extent, putting a public works building essentially on the marina footprint, because it would go where a previous building stood.
Yeah, it's where they're basically
Yeah.
storing all their
Where they're-
equipment at right now.
all the
anyways.
equipment.
So it wouldn't really affect so much any of our storage areas. So shouldn't lose any revenue on that with the
No.
building plan.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to look seriously at doing this next year. It just makes no sense to me. I don't know what we're paying on that property over in Bay Pines, but it makes no sense to be storing stuff over there when we've got the land available here. If we're not pushing forward with a high drive, we need to push forward with a public works building.
I agree.
And that's next on the list.
Yeah, that's, and part of public works,
Yeah.
so other than just replacing a Ford vehicle next year, really focus on the public works building.
And our fuel tanks, how often are they inspected?
You usually get an inspection. Well, there's agricultural inspections from the Department of Agriculture that make sure that you're calculating gallons and everything correctly. That's done annually.
Right.
And it's kind of been mixed up with COVID as far as the DEP inspections. But usually that's every 2 years.
Okay, I just want to be sure
Oh, we're good.
their integrity is good, so we don't end up with a leak.
No, we're good. They're all double walled tanks. In 2010, they made every fuel tank that's underground double walled with sensors and everything. So
Okay,
we're up to date.
And our last
Thank you.
inspection was
Last inspection was about 18 months ago.
Okay, some 20.
so we're
Yeah.
getting close.
We're getting close,
that'll-
Okay.
but we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that takes us to Public Works Admin. So we do have 4 items there, 2 of which are first, the design of the Public Works building for $200,000 in 2023. And then the eventual construction loosely budgeted at $2 million for 2024.
Likely that'll begin next year. I mean, we'll try to as fast track as you can to get a
Yeah,
building,
it,
but
it seems like month by month, everything's going up so much. I
Right.
think the sooner the better. It's scary. What page are you on for that?
I'm sorry,
That's
this,
51 of 56
Okay,
on the
there it is.
bottom right corner. Yep.
What else did I had something I wanted to ask about for Public Works. I've got a list, a wish list. Part of this is, I guess, Marina. It's actually the city in general. That's a digital sign for the Marina. And not just for the Marina, for community events and whatnot. You know, we've got the sign out here. Nobody sees it unless you're coming to City Hall. We really need something on 150th where we can
guessing that is a capital. I'm just thinking that's at least 25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
probably
that's our capital. What our capital threshold
It's
is.
5,000.
Five, okay, yeah. So, yeah, so we'll add that to the capital
Yeah.
list for 23.
Well, when,
'Cause-
when we get there, I'll give you my,
Well, we can start
laundry
now.
list.
We could say,
If-
that
wanna
if the sign
interrupt.
says we do building permits, then we have the building department fund it.
Yeah.
Mayor, if you want to proceed with your list, I think now is a good time
Well,
before we jump
well-
into recreation. If you,
I can do that. There are a number of things I've got, one of which is, Coast Guard Auxiliary. They have done so much for this community. They do boat inspections. They're out in Johns Pass. They patrol the area and they're really struggling and we may end up losing them. This past year, the city, gave a $10,000 grant to them, to help keep them going. The air conditioner had gone out. I understand they've got seawall issues. I would like to see that $10,000 grant continue, really on an annual basis and continue to give the Coast Guard a $10,000 grant each year. That's one.
That's not a donation, yeah.
The digital sign I've already mentioned, and a nice sign for the entrance of the city. Public Works Building, which we've already discussed. Maintenance of our parks, and that's something I have harped on. This will be the third year. And it seems like nothing has been really brought up as far as how the city looks. So I'd like to see us increase the budget on making this is a tourist destination. And of course, the company I worked for, everything was always spotless and impressive to go see. And I would at least like to see the entrance of the city and the city hall complex and parks and recreation out here and the marina and Archibald Park and Johns Pass Village and Johns Pass parking lot be areas that we can be proud of. And I haven't seen that. I've seen city parks going downhill a little more each year. The other is, part of that and part of the parks is the pavilion in the Johns Pass parking lot, the one on the west side of the bridge. It's in rough shape. It needs some TLC. And that's just part of fixing the parks up. And the other is Chamber of Commerce. I think we give a different amount to each Chamber of Commerce. But as the Madeira Beach Treasure Island Chamber has grown, it's actually as big as the Gulf Beaches Chamber now. And they've always got something going on and they're growing the business here. And I would like to see us match our contribution for the Madeira Beach Treasure Island Chamber of Commerce and have it the same as what we do for Gulf Beaches Chamber. Those are the main things I've got. I'm sure eventually I'll add something to the list, but of course, getting the undergrounding done and getting the groins done are big things, but those are the main things. Thanks.
And Mr. Mayor and Commission, one thing I did omit earlier from the Archibald, the $500,000 for the beach access improvements also includes the Johns Pass parking lot. That's going to be improved in the winter, so it is fiscal 23 with there'll be a set vehicle configuration, so vehicles won't be driving in both directions trying to reach the first, the same parking spot. There'll be a circulation, one-way circulation through the lot. There'll be stormwater improvements and then just improvements to the access. So that's part of that $500,000 that I mentioned earlier.
If I could just add to what Mayor Hendricks is saying with the parks maintenance, and I think we discussed it a little bit, was the ROC park, the maintenance of those plaques and of the plants. I would love to see that incled as well.
Right, that's part of what I'm
That's
talking
part of
about
what you're
in
talking
general,
about. Okay,
yeah.
great, great.
In general, ROC Park, that was, it was such a beautiful park, but it definitely, all the grounds out here need a lot of TLC. And in fact, while we're on that subject, Jay Hatch had mentioned the concession at ROC Park. And yeah, it's on your list. Okay. Yep.
Yes, when we get to recreation, it's on
Okay.
the big list.
All
Good
right.
deal.
May I just add one thing, Mr. Mayor, I agree with everything you were talking about there. The only thing I would like to add is as the board's representative to the Madeira Beach Treasurer, or I'm sorry, Treasurer on the Madeira Beach Chamber of Commerce. I don't think it's any real question that that group does more for our specific community than any of the other chambers do. So if we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna go lopsided one way or the other, that's the way we need to go. These guys, and like I said, I'm privy to the reports every week and the number of businesses and just direct businesses in Madeira Beach that it's growing by. And you've seen it at the mixers and the likes of that, the turnouts that they're getting. It's being run tremendously by Mr. Rubin. It's got really good direction. It's really moving forward. So, but like anything, any of those smaller businesses, any little bit of money that we can throw extra their way would help them out tremendously. So when we get to that line item, let's have a discussion on that.
Yeah, and in fact, real briefly, tomorrow night is a super mixer of a number of chambers. It's going to be at the Bilmar Hotel. I would invite you all to come and see part of what the chamber does for these communities, because it's been outstanding, and like you say, I agree that Barry Rubin has done an outstanding job with the chamber and in growing it, and everybody's really enthused and making this a better community. I'm done.
Recreation. Oh, let's see.
You want to move forward to recreation, or do you have something, Commissioner Hudson? Okay,
No, not now.
all right,
On
let's
to
talk
recreation.
yeah. So that's on page 52 of 56. And then the revenue and expense information on recreation is on page, 43 of 56 and 44 of 56. So if you have any
Yeah.
questions on any of that information?
So for the capital for recreation, Mayor and Commission, really the key, the big, our dog park that I still have never lived anywhere with the dog park that gets as much usage as the one out here. It definitely needs improvements, upgrades. Also the concession building that was mentioned a little moment ago, for the amount of the tournaments that are held from softball, Little League baseball, Little League, college softball, high school. Sometimes we have high school softball, but lots of usage of our fields, and the concession stand right now, I don't believe we can actually cook inside of it, for example. So a new building and a few other upgrades to the facility at Rock Part are really in some dire need. So, Jay?
Well, to jump in first on the park comments, I have received, we did start a new contract with the mowing company. I have received basically a annual maintenance, fertilizer, weed and feed, that kind of thing. I've got a quote for Rock Park the city hall complex and the fire station. They gave us 3 separate just in case, but I have that. I didn't have those numbers when we were putting this together, but I have that. And then they are working on a horticulture plan to essentially put in some landscaping that is saltwater tolerant and can deal with, we learned a lot, like not to go on it, but like the shells that we put around a lot of these plants in a lot of these places produce more phosphorus than a lot of these plants can handle, and it actually kills it rather than protects it. So learning things through the process. So they're gonna look at putting some stuff in there that makes more sense near the saltwater and with the shell and everything else. So they're very excited about it because it's an opportunity. They really do take ownership in these parks that they're helping out with their different contracts. So they're looking forward to that. Running down, they did mention the concession stand. That is one of the biggest needs out there. We have 2 restrooms for 350 active participant kids throughout the year. Plus, we do have the college tournament every 3 weeks out of the year. Major League Baseball is bringing their inter-city softball tournament to us this year. So it's just, we're getting more and more tournaments every year. So it's something that we utilize and then something that the Little League utilizes. And I do, one approach that I take with a lot of this stuff is anything that I do that we put forward as a capital project is something that we can look to get some sort of revenue out of it. So we're not just building stuff to, drain more money. So the dog park itself, we've actually started looking at that project. We've got an engineering group that's looking to put a layout for us. And with the ARPA funds and the lost funds, it's something that we would tackle with that. And we're looking at something, because I know we've already put sod out there multiple times and it just dies because it is used quite heavily. So we're looking at a more permanent turf option that would have to be replacement every 10 to 15 years, and it's cleanable and all that stuff. So, and then the last thing on there, you guys talked about the solar project for the rec center, and we talked about the different buildings, and solar was the one that we kind of looked into for rec. When I heard that we had 300 and change in BP money, I thought it would be fun for us to get a little creative and spend BP oil money on renewable energy projects. So we're putting together a list that we'll bring back to you guys. I have talked to Jamal and Parking about putting charging stations in some of the lots with that money as well. So anything that we can do to enhance our green energy footprint and, kind of get the news looking at us for using BP money for solar. So we're working on that, and I've got another group working on something else with solar that they're very excited about, but I don't know that our funding will match that. But beyond that, general improvements, anything that we do, we want to look to generate revenue, whether it's through sponsorships or improved activity or whatever else. So I don't know if you guys had any other direct questions on that stuff.
Yeah, I do know someone in another city told me that Duke had put charging stations in at no charge to the city. That's something we could maybe touch base on and maybe even have some charging stations at a number of the parks.
So this is a subject that I have a strong feeling about one way or the other. I'm just curious, your last item for the building to enclose the existing basketball court. Is that because we want to make it indoors now? Is it?
So we run basketball leagues. During COVID, the school wouldn't let us use their gym, so we used the gym at Seminole. And then this past year, we used the gym at the school, which is a great partnership.
You mean Madeira Beach?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we utilize their gym over there. When it comes down to things, they charge us for rolls of toilet paper when we utilize their facility.
Yeah,
So
it's a school board.
well, it's not we could continue to do that program one time a year. If we were to do this, we would be able to utilize this facility year round. I know pickleball is a very large growing sport. We don't have anything indoors. So as soon as it gets above 75, that dies out here.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I was just.
Yeah,
curious.
absolutely.
Yeah, it would give us essentially what Jay just said, we do not have an indoor facility, a multi-purpose athletic facility that this
So
would
we'd have an
allow us.
enclosed gym,
Yeah, an enclosed,
basically, like. Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, just to add a little clarification on that too. I'm certainly not gonna say anything about dogs because some people come at me with pitchforks around here. But when we first built this facility back, when was it, 2015? The initial plan for those ball fields was just to kind of keep it the way it was. and all of a sudden it got upgraded, but the only thing that really didn't get upgraded was the concession stand and the bathrooms and the likes of that. So it's definitely outgrown what initially was spoken about. So this is a tremendous idea, and Jay's right. The amount of revenue that'll be generated just from those activities will pay for this in no time. And the basketball court itself, you know, I always look back to when you were talking about the school here earlier. One thing that we proposed a while back was the school field used to look like every time by about November, it was sand. Grass wouldn't grow or anything like that. So one year, I forgot what we made money on. We made,
Carnival.
it was the carnival. It was the first year we had the carnival and we got a check for about $25,000 or $30,000. So we were way, I mean, we're revenue wise, we were blowing out our revenue number. And I said, look, and I made a proposal to Chris Atik and I said, hey, if we put sprinkler systems out there to grow the grass, just give us free rein. He was like, you kidding me? Of course. So that's why when you drive by there now, the grass looks fantastic, but it's also why you drive by there now. And Jay's got leagues out there, soccer leagues out there with 2-3 times a year that are generating more revenue in one year than we even paid for the sprinkler system. So the ideas that he's coming up with are just fantastic because, yeah, we got to spend a little money up front, but getting the community involved, building that baseball league, building our soccer leagues, this is all recurring revenue now. So it's just, so maybe a little upfront, you know, seed money to get it going, but it pays for itself in spades down the road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Next on the list, sanitation.
Sanitation, and really no capital for next year's budget, just 2024 to replace truck number 33. And then just replacements going on in future years up through 2027. We will be looking, we'll be bringing back at a future workshop to look at our waste connections agreement, recycling. So just to kind of give everybody a foreshadowing, our contract ends, this is the 3rd year of a 3-year agreement. And we recently met with Waste Connection and the recycling industry continues to change and they're proposing a change. So we'll be bringing that back to you that could potentially bring us a capital purchase for next year. We're just not ready yet. We hope to have it hopefully, probably most likely at the July workshop where we will bring that information to you that may alter the capital for 2023 in the sanitation fund. But fortunately, the sanitation fund has improved, and I think mainly due to the rate increases that occurred last year. So it's solvent currently. So over the last couple of years, its expenditures were exceeding its revenues, and now it's quite positive this year. I think that's on, I forget what page it's on, but yeah, the revenue has exceeded the expenditures for the first 6 months of this year.
Yeah, 855,000 to 762,000. Yep. On page 20 of 56.
Yeah, that's because of changes we made with adjusting the charges for pickup on the recycle and the trash collection itself. So we were at a negative on all that for apparently quite a long time.
Yep.
Stormwater. Getting toward the end of the packet, and one of the last pages, but essentially that's where we record most of our road milling and resurfacing and improvements to our streets and roads. And it's kind of a lengthy list of streets, areas 3, 5, and 6 that are listed over the next few years. It's a little, we start at the top of the page for the capital items with area 6, Gulf Lane, Beach beach access.
Drainage.
Yeah, I'm sorry, drainage. Area 6 lists the roads, which continues into 2024. Area 5 in 2023. And then it skips down again in 2023. Area 3. So as I stated, areas 3, 5, and 6 regarding these improvements. And then on a smaller scale, just a watershed management plan and whatever emergency stormwater repairs that occur throughout the year. We will bring you an update as to what we have had for the last 2 years, because I'm not sure if that was presented with the budget last year as to what type of emergency repairs. But for example, this year, we've had to, it's an emergency stormwater repair, but it's not, we will be reimbursed, but that's all the work on 140th. But that would fall under this. I mean, we are paying those invoices up front, and then we will be reimbursed for that entire cost by Frontier and their contractors.
While we're on this, you know, we've got check valves in some of our stormwater lines. For instance, on 140th. I've heard two different things. From what I've seen, they don't work. But from what I've been told in other cities, if you maintain them, they work. So, we do need to look at whether or not we're properly maintaining the check valves. Or if there's, you know, or if there's another check valve, but, you know, I'm sure they grow oysters and barnacles down in there, and if you're not maintaining, right, but, yep. So that's something to keep in mind where we on a regular basis with a king tide, we've got street flooding. That's something we really need to take a look at, because if you're driving your vehicle through that water, it's not rainwater, it's salt water, and you're ruining your vehicle.
Okay.
I'll,
Sorry.
okay, you're up.
Okay, on this list, we've borrowed money for some of these projects. What has already been decided, we've paid for, or with the money that we have, and when are we starting again for having to finance or not pay down debt and use the money that we have in the general fund to pay for some of these future projects?
I can get you that information. We have a spreadsheet that shows incurred project cost to date, and then the spent down the debt proceeds. We need to do that for arbitrage rebate analysis. So we certainly have that information as far as how much of those debt proceeds are left. I think maybe it's rough, maybe 4 million out of the 15 might be remaining. I mean, we can look at what is in ending net position for the Stormwater Fund as of
Crystal Isle was
Right, was the main.
12.8, and the county paid a small portion of that.
2 million.
Yeah, about two. So 4 million is probably pretty accurate as
yeah.
far as what's left.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is, guys, gentlemen, please take a look at this page. So every time you're feeling all warm and fuzzy that we're rich,
Yep,
take a look
that-
at what's coming up and what we've got paid out. And that's not the end of it. That's just kind of the beginning of the project list that we have. So anytime you're feeling all warm and fuzzy, and anytime you're thinking about lowering the millage rate, look at that $9.733 million that's got to come out of our budget by 2026. So just a food for thought as we go through the next couple of sessions of this.
In 2015, we actually borrowed 6.2 million for various drainage and roadway improvements. In 2019 is when the city obtained the 15 million bank loan mainly for the Crystal Island, partially for Marguerite Drive and a little bit for John's Pass Village. So that's where those went. And, but as Andrew said, we do have, I mean, we haven't spent all of it. So we'll provide you as to what's the remaining and the breakdown of where all of that was spent, obviously. But the majority at Crystal Island.
Well, is it time to increase what we charge residents for stormwater?
That, yeah, that's where, I mean, stormwater revenue that each, yeah. for-
We're talking about a potential rate increase.
Oh, a
Right.
potential, oh,
Because we charge, what,
$10
$10
a
a
month.
month? And
We're kind of in the middle. Yeah, we can certainly look. I mean, the stormwater fund is, I mean, also, well, I guess you could, you could say it is solvent, but when you, I mean, we borrowed and then took out another loan, so it's obviously the revenues haven't been sufficient to pay for everything. But again, it's,
right, it's never going to be
Never gonna be
sufficient to pay
sufficient.
for everything because we put so many things in it. But I don't know when the last time it was increased and if that's something we want to do that, or if we want to continue to pay it out of general fund. And if we do pay it out of general fund, we need to find a better way of getting credit for that with the residents.
Yeah, right now our stormwater fees is essentially covering operations,
Yeah.
but no capital. Stormwater service, this is on page 22 of 56, shows the breakdown of revenues, expenses in the stormwater fund. In FY 2021, it was almost $700,000, 691. And that largely funds personnel and operating.
How often do you mill and resurface? I mean, is there a plan for that? Is it every 10 years? What is it?
it varies, but I mean, pretty much you want your roads or streets to last at least 10 years, but it,
Well, I'm just
Yeah,
wondering,
that's
is
been-
that the typical, is there a set calendar, basically?
there hasn't been one. But that's pretty much what's been followed.
Any other questions on stormwater? The last one is parking. We do have a kind of a historical parking graph that you might find interesting. That's on page 47 of 56, gives you a little historical on citywide parking. So taking it from all of our parking sources, including Archibald, just to kind of show you where we've been, where we're budgeted, and where we're at year to date. So in 2020 actual, we were at 2.23 million total. 2021 million, we were at 2.77 million. We've budgeted 2.5, and we're already through March, we were at 1.42. So you annualize that, you're about 2.8. So it looks like we're doing well on the parking side in terms of revenue volume. And then page 55 of 56 is the capital for parking, which it's the big ticket items are obviously the parking garage.
Right, and the remaining items are really just kind of annual for any parking equipment that's needed, whether it's a kiosk or
Yep.
Handheld, or we, completely redo signage. But primarily, the biggest items, again, the parking garage. We will be reaching, getting more ideas and engineering sort of and architectural ideas, proposals as to bring back to all of you to see what that might look like. We'll see where the revenue is from the additional 50 cents. The increase from last year, we did provide that, I think, a few meetings ago. And no, come on up, Jamal. And Jamal, our parking manager, supervisor, excuse me.
Mayor, everyone. Lou, I do have an update on the revenue. $187,334 for parking garage revenue so far.
87,000?
187.
Oh, 187,000. That's through March or through April?
Up through April, I believe. I can get back with Patrick and double check that.
But one item to, and I guess we haven't really had, really internal, and we will discussions as to the best way to proceed financially. Because we are collecting the dedicated revenue for the garage, but whether there's any type of financing or how we look to pay for the garage is something that we'll need to take a very close look at and see what, because if we do that, then we need to, which I've said since I've been here, we would need to create a parking fund. We currently, parking revenue goes into the general fund with the exception of the meters at Archibald that go into the Archibald fund. But if we do look, whether we issue bonds, obtain a loan, et cetera, then we would need to separately account for parking in its own fund. I think Archibald, we can leave as its own fund
that
because
there,
it
yeah.
is an enterprise type
And it
fund.
stays in there, yeah.
But the rest of the parking would be, we would create a parking fund with all dedicated revenue. And how it would work to fund items in the general fund would simply be just an interfund transfer. We would, when we compile the budget, we would determine if we're estimated to collect 3 million, then we would, 2.5 million would go into the general fund, et cetera, to make the, just as to show where the money is going.
What would it take to make a parking fund budget item? Was that a charter change?
No,
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 it's
it's
just an, it's an
just an
accounting
accounting.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just create a fund and start, and we could do that at the onset of fiscal year 2023. Just accounting magic.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
similar to what we had said about the, I mean to interrupt you, Vice Mayor, but similar to what we said earlier about for the impact fees.
Impact
Excuse me.
fees.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Andrew would work his magic.
right, I mean, because I think the concept that, how many months have we had the 50% increase? It's 3, 4?
Since December
That's
1,
December.
December 1.
About 4 months maybe, right? So 187, so maybe 400,000 for the year roughly, right? So, I mean, that gives us a starting base. I mean, the concept that I proposed a long time ago, we were going to build this on the backs of tourist revenue, not on the backs of the citizens. So, to be able to create the loan coming out of directly being paid by that fund potentially is really what would make, I mean, honestly, it would make that portion of the promise come true. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be all for that because I mean, not only that 50 cents is going to go in there, but the parking revenue from the garage would end up heading there as well.
Right.
Bottom line, that should be paid off in 5-6 years if not sooner. So that would be the goal as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I should speak for one.
Yeah, I thought we had the discussion on putting the 50 cents in a parking fund for the garage, specifically for the garage.
It is separated, so we do have that. We just
Okay.
don't have a dedicated accounting fund
Okay.
like these other funds that we just went through.
Yeah, we are separately tracking and accounting for
Okay.
it.
Well, does that require a motion or on the board or something?
To create a new fund, no, we could, again, just discuss our ideas in workshops such as these and make the ultimate determination. And if you're supportive, then we could just create the impact fee fund and parking fund beginning October 1st, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all I have. I think so for the next, just to clarify the next budget workshop, maybe we can schedule that now. And if you all like the idea of keeping it in the same day as a regular workshop and proceeding it, like do another 4 o'clock and then the workshop be at 6, so we can just knock both out, then that would put us at, and Claire, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but June 22nd.
If we could, yeah, have the next budget workshop on
Or would it, no,
Wednesday.
sorry, June 29. It's the 2nd and 4th.
No, it's,
So it'd be the fourth Wednesday is the 29th. So it'd be June 29. Unless I'm off on that.
Oh, and the 22nd.
it's the 20.
Oh, it
it's
is the 22nd?
22nd.
Okay, sorry. So we can do 4 PM on the 22nd. We'll provide now a more comprehensive preliminary budget document that includes budget forecasts, year-to-date projections through 2022 and the budgeted figures for 2023. And we can provide you more detailed information on personnel. So we can provide you a number of FTEs by department. We can provide, it's up to you all, the level of detail you want. If you just want names of positions or number of positions by department, whatever detail you all want, we can provide for the next meeting or going forward.
Okay.
I
Thank
think the spreadsheet that you gave us, just without names.
Just without names. So you like the
that's
information
right.
last year? Let's just exclude names. We'll put
Yeah, the
the
position.
department
titles.
position number instead or something, so we exclude the names. So we'll give you that information then.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else have anything?
Thank you, Mayor and
Yeah,
Commission, for your
Thanks,
time.
thanks you all for your time and your feedback.
Yep.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned at 5:46.